Trump has cratered. That is the word now from Megyn Kelly, once a huge defender of President Trump, of course. She's reacting to the series of polls and such now that are not so good for Trump amid the war with Iran. Today, consumer sentiment hit its lowest level on record, going back to 1952. 58% of Americans also now disapprove of the job that the president is doing, according to the New York Times polling average, the highest disapproval numbers of his second term. And the most recent Fox News poll shows a majority of voters think that Democrats will be better than Republicans for the economy. And get this, that's the first time that has happened in that poll since 2010 under President Obama. And then there's this take from Megyn Kelly.
Trump has cratered. I mean, cratered. It's like not even present tense anymore. It's done. You're effed. You need to adjust something ASAP.
Max Rose, Gretchen Carlson are both out front here. Gretchen, do you see it as bad for the president and the Republican Party as she's painting it?
I think it's bad with a capital B. Mm-hmm. He's underwater in absolutely every category except border security, which is 53 to 47%. With independence, he's underwater 55 points. There's been almost a 60-point swing since he was reelected just a year and a half ago.
And that's no matter what any campaign says. Like, we don't watch it, we look at trends. That is like a five-alarm fire.
That is a five, because independents decide every election. Mm-hmm. We know that. But I think if the election were held today with those numbers, Trump would have lost in a landslide, not won. And really, he just needs to look in the mirror, because a lot of his ideas, a lot of Americans agreed with. That's why he was reelected. Immigration, the economy, his strong points. But his implementation of the plans is what has suffered. It's not necessarily the ideas, it's the way in which he goes about it, which has been a failure.
Yeah, Max, midterms are often, or maybe I should say always, seen as a referendum on the party in power.
Sure.
The way that President Trump's top advisors are saying they're approaching the midterms, though, is trying to portray it as a stark choice between two parties, and just Democrats simply are worse at it. Do you think they could be successful in this?
Look, as a Democrat, I would say to my Republican friends, these numbers are not that bad. They shouldn't change a thing. Keep the course.
No one be concerned, look away?
It's totally going to be fine for them. Look, these numbers are god-awful, and we're getting to the point in the electoral cycle where certainly, yes, independents matter, perhaps the most. But what's a close second as well is the enthusiasm of your own party, particularly in a midterm election when there's not a presidential top ticket. And you couldn't possibly have numbers this low if your base also wasn't dramatically changing their sentiments away from you. That's what Megyn Kelly is pointing to. Those are her viewers. So this is a five-alarm fire for the Republicans. On the Democratic side, what they principally have to be concerned about right now is discipline. No self-inflicted wounds. Keep calm.
Have you met
steady.
either party before, Max? Because you've got plenty of time and plenty of self-inflicted wounds.
As much as I like Max, I will have to say that the Democrats also need to find a leader. They need to coalesce around somebody. I don't think we know necessarily who that person might be yet, but they also need to go back to the basics of what they used to be strong at, which is the economy, the middle class, et cetera. So I think there is still work to do on the Democratic side. I don't think they should run with these numbers and say, hey, it's going to be smooth sailing.
What's your general view, both of you, on let's just god-awful is where numbers are at right now. But the second question is always, is there enough time to turn it around? I mean, unlike the broad sense, I wonder if that's possible if you look at the economy. But when you look at how the president has talked about the war with Iran, it's either over or almost over, and has been like that since the first attack, the way he talks about it. Even if it did end tomorrow, there is a political question in, has lasting damage been done just in these 56 days politically already? I don't know. What do you think?
I think his base would come right back to him. Remember, they reelected him because they were more isolationists. They didn't want to get America involved in any wars. I think the biggest problem is going to be for him is the economy at this point, because you can't just reverse the increase in gas prices.
Let's be honest.
No, and so I think, look, at the bottom line, people vote with how they feel about the economy, and 100%. And so that would be the first reason of how they will vote. But I do think you can turn this around. The other thing I'll just quickly add is, if Republicans want to be reelected for the midterms, they need to start distancing themselves from Trump. We saw that with Tom Tillis and what happened with the Fed chair. He said he wasn't going to vote for the new one if they continued to prosecute the old one. Guess what? They dropped that investigation. Republicans have power if they want it.
My wife and I, we took our little kids to one of those indoor playground gyms the other day. If you don't have little kids, I would recommend don't ever go to one of these things. But a guy came up to me, right, and this is on Staten Island, plenty of Trump voters, majority Trump supporters. And he said to me, we knew each other, he said, look, I'm MAGA through and through, but I didn't vote for America first, war with Iran. This has hit home amongst the Trump
So you
base.
think the damage has been done?
Searing damage, because it's so out and center that he lied. He clearly ran on ending forever wars, on never committing to another forever war, to not being a president that engages in reckless war overseas. And look at what he's done. It's so obvious, so clear, such a flagrant lie to his base that they're very clearly angry and are leaning towards staying at home.
There is a rift that is widening among some Republicans over this war in Iran, with some of the president's once loyal followers pushing back now on this. Listen.
Literally, we're 4 weeks into this war, and this is the first we've heard about. We're going to go in and just get the uranium. Like, we haven't. That is new. It changed from, oh no, it's about the missiles. We got to get rid of those missiles. Okay, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. That was stated broadly. We got to do regime change because the Ayatollah's bad. It just keeps moving.
And then there's Senator Lindsey Graham. He's one of the most hawkish figures in President Trump's orbit. And he called on Trump in a post this morning to wind down, yes, you read that right, wind down the war and wind up efforts for a peace deal. Graham added that he supports diplomatic efforts, but he said that an agreement from both sides is needed to resolve this conflict. So, Lydia, what is going on here? Obviously, look, I always have to caveat this. MAGA is behind the president, but there are some people who are worried about where this is heading. Megyn Kelly is one of them, but Lindsey Graham saying wind down.
He went to Disney World this weekend, and I think he wants to bring some of that Disney magic back to Washington, D.C., clearly. Look, I think one thing that's always been a hallmark of the right is ideological diversity, and I think it's good for conservatives to push back and make sure that President Trump is not in an echo chamber and that he's hearing what many in his base think. And so I'm glad to hear that articulated. I think what's more troubling to me than a podcaster saying, should we be pushing for regime change, is the fact that you have Democratic candidates, a Democratic candidate in Michigan who basically in a leaked tape today said, I don't want to criticize the Ayatollah because too many constituents in Michigan are devastated that he's dead. So that's something that I think is much more concerning than Megyn Kelly.
Democratic candidate.
Yes, El Sayed from Michigan said there are a lot of people in Dearborn who are sad about his death.
Because they're sad.
I would much rather see a party have a debate than stay silent
until that candidate in Michigan is commander-in-chief and actually can do something about the war. I'm going to give what Trump says and what the people around him say more important.
I would like to see
I do think
Ayatollah
that
roundly condemned. I think that's something we should all agree on as Americans.
No,
Sure.
nobody's
we can
ever
certainly all
not
agree on
condemned the
that.
Ayatollah.
But on the question of
To
what
me,
the
that's so
president
fringe.
of the United States
but the problem
is going to
the
do,
problem
that's
is
what
that
we're talking about here.
Trump right now does live in an echo chamber surrounded by his cabinet members, right? This would probably be a very different situation if it was the Trump cabinet from the first administration that you were part of. If there was a Mike Pence there, if there was a Jim Mattis there, if there was a John Kelly there.
Although
and I think
Mike Pence
that was
is pretty hawkish.
That was part of the reason. That was part of the reason why he put people like Pete Hegseth in there, why he put people like Pam Bondi and like Marco Rubio in there, because the quality he was looking for was absolute loyalty, and they're showing it.
Do you think that the president is hearing this concern? conservatives and some of the people that he used to cross over, right? So not just MAGA, but the people like the Joe Rogans who helped him get to the sort of the MAGA bros and the people in the middle who are worried that he's breaking promises, worried that he's slipping into a conflict that could necessitate American troops on the ground in Iran.
Sure, he's hearing it. I think he follows it pretty closely. I think he's always following. I think he's beta testing messages constantly. But as I started, Abby, I think that the professor makes a great point about October 7th, because for Israel, that has become an existential threat. And for Israel, it's hard for them to find a better partner than President Trump in this campaign. But what I think that the administration has failed to do is to give clear messaging. The messaging has continued to diverge on different reasons for why we're engaged here and what the ultimate objective is. They would do well to explain that to the American people. I think that, again, Iran has posed a threat for 47 years. They've slaughtered many of Westerners. They've created an existential threat for our partner in Israel. And they are trying to develop nuclear weapons. There's a rationale for this, but it has to be explained to American people.
I'm also offended when anyone projects themselves as Christ or as Christ or God incarnate. And you shouldn't want that.
We should not have a president who gleefully blasphemes the faith of, by far, the vast majority of his supporters.
The cracks are widening in the MAGA Foundation tonight after President Trump shared this AI image of himself depicted as Jesus. After severe backlash, Trump deleted the post, and then he claimed that it was actually a picture of him as a doctor. It's just the latest in a pattern of increasingly erratic behavior that we've seen from Trump, and that seems to be getting under MAGA's skin. Just last week, Trump also threatened to wipe out an entire civilization, the Iranian civilization. And that has CNN political commentator S.E. Cupp calling out former Trump diehards for suddenly feeling buyer's remorse.
You and your buyer's remorse. Who would listen to you now? Who would listen to you? You got us here. You voted for him. You told everyone they have to vote for him, right? It's going to be World War III if you don't vote for him. Give me a break. No one cares what you have to say anymore. We told you so.
Anna, I feel like maybe you might empathize with what Essie is saying there. I mean, there are all these people, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, among them, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who they are, I don't know, I guess they have amnesia. They don't remember seeing Trump for the last decade. I'm not sure that Trump really has changed all that much. They have changed.
Agreed.
Their tolerance has changed, but Trump hasn't.
Well, look, I'm seeing it in my own circles in Miami. Remember, I live in a community that overwhelmingly supported Trump, and I am seeing some of the cracks in the dam. And I think part of the reason that he's picked this fight with the Pope, other than the fact that the Pope gets under his skin, and he's depicting himself as Jesus Christ, and then lying about it. So that's like 2 or 3 commandments that he violated in one fell swoop. Is because he's having such a bad time right now, right? His wife is out there giving some random press conference at Epstein, the subject he wants to forget. The approval numbers are down in the basement. His Iran talks have fallen apart, all while he's in Miami watching a UFC fight. Gas prices are through the roof, and his best friend in Hungary just lost overwhelmingly after 16 years in power, despite J.D. Vance having been there just a few days ago, helping him campaign. And instead of us talking about Viktor Orban and the bells that should be ringing for Republicans, the wake-up alarms that should be ringing for the Republicans, we're talking about Trump's insanity and stupidity and blasphemy and lack of respect. So is there logic to his method and his madness? Yes. But people are less and less tolerant of it because it's one after the other, after the other, after the other.
I want to interject on Anna's point. I don't think Trump lied about the post, and I'm not here to defend every action that he makes.
You think he thought he was
I want to tell you,
a doctor?
Trump didn't AI that photo. The original post, was it Nick Adams who posted it originally? It was, yeah. So he posted that many months ago, calling Trump the healer of the nation. Now, I'm not crazy, I have eyes. I could see how people are like, oh, Trump is portraying himself as Jesus Christ. But A, he took it down. B, this isn't really that surprising to anyone. And C, that's not, if the person who created the photo is denying that,
Do you
I
find
don't
it
know who we are. Blasphemous?
Yeah.
If he was intentionally portraying himself as Jesus Christ,
He was,
But like,
But
do you
he
think he was
was.
portraying himself
I
as a
don't
doctor?
think so. Oh, as a healer of the nation. That's how. That's what
But
the
like,
guy who
what
created
doctor
it
like
said.
has glowing
I'm not
hands
sure
and
that
wears a
he
robe
was
like
an
that? Like, if
story.
he can't identify that looks like Jesus
Well, I
Christ,
think he
then
did,
I'm
and that's why
concerned
he
with
deleted
his.
it.
Even the healer of the nation thing, that doesn't absolve him of anything.
But I feel like he deleted it, so it
Jesus,
shouldn't even
the whole
be.
thing that the picture depicts is Jesus healing. Okay, that's what the picture is supposed to show.
Okay.
In the Bible, Jesus heals several people, and so the idea that Trump thought of himself as a healer, but sees himself depicted as somebody dressed like Jesus with an aura around his hands and his head, that does not absolve him.
Well, did he delete
at
it?
all?
Do we have bigger
I will-
things in the world?
Sure,
to
he
talk
deleted
about?
the image, and I will
I
applaud him
think
for
that,
that.
like the line is like, what if, like, what if Barack Obama did it? Like,
I
that would be-
honestly,
no,
I
but
think
it's not
I
an
would.
honestly thing. It's
I think
it's
I
I know
would.
how you would react. But the fact is that, and I think that this is not a Donald Trump problem. This is more of my good friends on the panel problem, because we know who Donald Trump is, and the problem is that his supporters cannot sit on TV or wherever it is and simply say, "Look, that's blasphemous."
But they did.
That's
So many of
sacrilege.
them did. Riley
No,
Gaines
but I
did.
mean, like, it's sacrilegious. You are absolving him of the issue that I find to be very blasphemous, that I find to be very sacrilegious, that 90% of America finds him to be very sacrilegious on. This is Mr. 2 Corinthians. This is not somebody who actually has a full grasp of theology, a full grasp of scripture, but yet and still, this is a party of faith.
Well, Bakari, don't get me wrong. I would not have been like, hey, this is a phenomenal idea.
I'm not
That's
saying
not
that.
what I'm
No,
saying.
that's not what I'm asking. That's not my charge to you at all. And the audacity of me to have a charge to you on national TV. My charge to you, however, is to simply be able to say on camera, Donald Trump was wrong.
Oh, I've said it plenty of times. I don't have a problem saying that.
No, on this particular issue, Donald Trump was wrong. He should not have done it. It's not about him taking it down. Be able to have the audacity and courage to call him out and say it was wrong.
Let me say this. It wasn't smart to post.
Oh, my God.
He took it. It was wrong to post. He took it down.
I will
Thank
give
you
her
for
that.
that.
Saying
He
that it was
deleted
wrong
it.
to
But
post.
we'll move on.
All right,
The Democratic
so
Party
hold on.
not also a party of faith?
Well, very much so. I hate the fact that you
I
all
don't know.
think-
They made Trans Visibility Day on Easter.
Well,
so
first
I
of all,
don't
Trump
know about
dropped
that.
the
First of all,
info on
just so
Easter
we're
and didn't go to church. He went and played golf.
hang on
we're
one-
extremely
hang on
clear, the
one
most
second.
culturally conservative
Hang on
and
one
religiously conservative group in the country are black folk in the South, which happen to be the base of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
So one thing we will not do is question the religiosity. We will not question the Christianity. We will not question whether or not we have believers in the Democratic Party. That's something we won't do, because I know for a fact, like, my mama was in church on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's how we grew up. And that is the way that it is. And so we're not going to have that.
All right, hang on one second, okay? Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Abby. Welcome to the Abby Phillips Show.
J.D. Vance defended the
A
president's.
converted Catholic.
Well, we'll get to that. He defended the Post, and then tonight, he actually had some strong words for the Pope, criticizing the Pope for talking about war. Listen.
On the one hand, again, I like that the Pope is an advocate for peace. I think that's certainly one of his roles. On the other hand, how can you say that God is never on the side of those who wield the sword? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated France from the Nazis? Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated Holocaust camps and liberated those innocent people from, those who had survived the Holocaust? I certainly think the answer is yes.
Well, Abby, what do you not like about that?
Well, here's what he was doing in those comments, and he had many more. He was saying to the Pope, "Don't get over your skis on theology." This is someone who was converted to Catholicism in 2019. J.D. Vance became a Catholic in 2019 after being an Episcopalian and an atheist.
Was
now
that
he's a Catholic.
before or after he became a Trumper?
I think what is surprising to me is that he would suggest that the Pope doesn't understand the theology of the Catholic Church.
I think friction between national leaders and the papacy has been a hallmark throughout time. We can go back to Emperor Henry IV, who slammed Pope Gregory VII. King Henry VIII had so many problems with Pope Clement VII that he started his own church, and King Philip IV, his agents assaulted Pope Boniface VIII, who died shortly thereafter.
Let me tell you a difference. Those were kings. This is the United States of America, and there's over 50 million Catholics, a lot of them who supported Donald Trump. So what he's doing is not only wrong from every perspective, it's also politically stupid. Picking a fight with the Pope. When we Catholics go to Mass, and I will admit I don't go to Mass that often, I should go more. But when we go to Mass, one of the things we do at Mass every Sunday is we pray for the Pope. We pray for the Archbishop. We pray for the priest. We pray for the Pope every single Sunday. You don't pick a fight with the Pope.
So does that mean Trump has to agree with every Pope or
Nobody's saying that he has to agree.
I've never seen a Pope get so political than not only this Pope, but the one prior.
Like Pope Francis.
They're like interjecting.
Let me introduce you to John Paul II, who was very much part of the politics with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan.
So that's fair game.
We need to put
if you want to get political, then it's fair game. If they disagree with you
we need to put in context that a lot of the Pope's criticisms of the war came after Trump threatened to annihilate the entire Iranian
Can we do a quick
civilian
poll?
population.
Do you think he would have done it? Or do you think he meant it? It's yes or no?
I think that he was.
It's yes or no.
He was threatening.
It does.
But okay, do you think
Emily,
that's
because he's trying?
is that a good negotiating tactic for the president of the United States to use that rhetoric?
Yeah, I mean, does it matter whether he meant it? Does it matter to you that an American president puts annihilating a civilization on the table?
This is something I actually said on your show previously. With Trump, I follow his actions, less his words. We all know he runs his mouth.
So
this
hold
is
on.
not news.
By that same logic, when a terrorist regime like Iran says that they want to annihilate
but they
Israel.
Mean it.
They
but actually mean, they've shown that they will
one
do
of the big differences between us and terrorist regimes is that we don't threaten it, and we don't mean it.
Terrorist regime.
I'm not okay
we don't
with threatening
we don't,
the civilian
we don't
populations
threaten it, and we
of
don't
innocent
mean
people.
it.
And I think
it's
we all
both
know
things,
that Trump
Emily.
would not have even thought about doing that, and that clearly
but I don't
he was
think that
putting
that's
pressure.
the right position for an American president to take to put that on the
I think that's terrible politics, and I think Peter may agree with me on this, because I think what you should do is actually bring the Pope in, bring Catholics in. You don't necessarily antagonize the Pope, right? Because you have somebody who is, in terms of being a religious conservative, in terms of all of the leaders that we have in the Republican Party, he's probably near the bottom 1%, right? And so what you do is you bring in other Catholic leaders. What you do is you bring in the Pope. What you do is you try to mend that fence. You don't antagonize him from Air Force One. You don't antagonize him from the Rose Garden. What you do is you try to heal. That's the problem that people have. If Donald Trump would have taken a different tact, if the Pope says this is an unjust war, and you say, look, I believe it's just because of X, Y, and Z, not necessarily personal attacks, but X, Y, and Z. Bring in the Catholic members of the Senate and the House. Have a what I'm asking this old man to do is be normal and not demented. And unfortunately, that is not a bar that he can cross.